let's get psyched to load up those PCs, those sterilizers, those pressure cookers, pressure canners, whatever you like to call them. Pretty easy to load, most of them. Got a nice little trick here I'd like to show you, however, with these little jars in our racks. Typically, they want you to put your water in there and then have whatever you're sterilizing kind of semi-submerged. I've found that liquid touching your liquid or your grains or whatnot will either make your grains soggy or potentially burn your agar. So I like to raise mine up off the bottom there a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and throw these jars in the bottom, and you can see me place them from above here. Put our rack on top of them. And then really what we're doing is we're just creating a cavity down there to allow some extra water. Get it up a little bit higher, and we can still keep it out of the water in that case and prevent any of that potential nastiness occurring. Now you do the same thing with our Presto pressure cooker. That All-American there we started with was a very large one. I can't remember what it is. I think it's a 28 quart perhaps. It's bigger of the versions they have. I have an electric one we'll show you how to use here shortly as well. And we'll do the same thing, except for we use 3 jars, as you can see here, instead of 4, as in the larger one. And we use these little racks that come with the Presto. And voila, we get more water. And again, we keep it up out of there. Pretty handy dandy. Now we'll go ahead and switch to actually loading them. And we're back to load it here. Pretty simple. We got our water, we got our bottles, we got our grain hiding in the background. We're going to top this off here. We're going to show you how high to fill it up. You basically just want to fill it to right below that tray we placed on top of the jars. Paying attention to fill in those jars full of water, otherwise they'll float during the heating process and kind of make it funky if you don't have a lot of agar holding it down. Pretty easy. We're just going to put them in there and kind of arrange them so it doesn't tip over like it tried to do there on me. It helps if you look at how those jars are balanced in there. And that's pretty much it. You're just going to load them in there and make them look pretty. As an added bonus here, we're going to show you how to load grain. Now, this is dry grain, as I don't really sterilize grain too much these days, but I did have some laying around. Now, this is pretty easy. A lot of people will go ahead and they will seal their bags beforehand. I would recommend not doing it. But also, when you load them in, make sure that there's space around them so that they can fit into the cooker with steam all around them. Right now, I'm going to line it up so that the opening of the bag is facing towards the inside, not pressed against the outside. Essentially, that's just so that if that opening is pushed against the outside and that steam were pushing against the metal where it gets hot, that it might create a seal. If you don't know, if you get unicorn bags, they are what they call self-sealing. When you roll them like that on themselves, the steam pushes all the air out and causes it to create a vacuum when it cools, which, having been heated and pressed down, will cause it to seal, calling it a self-sealing. You can still pull it apart by hand, but it is sealed, and you can tell by the vacuum effect at the end of the cook if you've done it right. Now, in this case, I like to use these rings. You can use the metal or the plastic. I will stick them in there to kind of separate the bags out there and further allow for steam to pass all the way around that bag. That works great. I can tell you I had problems sterilizing for some time, and I could not track down my issues, and this took care of it permanently. I have never had issues since doing this before. I think in a larger sterilizer, you can get away with sealing them, but at home, I would recommend. And you can put that little extra tray in there as a divider and put another rack on top, and because you allowed for more steam, it will sterilize it all. And here we have that fancy-pantsy 75X electric cooker. We'll show you some of the differences here. Inside, we have an element in the bottom and a nice little raised rack. Wish they put that in the stove top. Otherwise, the biggest notable difference is this here pot or sleeve that you can drop in there. you can load it out the side and put it in. Makes it easier to get everything set up. Now, otherwise, you'll see when I throw the lid on here, it's got a nice little locking valve on top. Now, let's look at sealing this bad boy up. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to start flipping over the clamps there, and we're just kind of paying attention to the sides of the lid and where it rests against the base of the pot. We're just trying to keep it even all the way around. So you can see here, we'll zoom in. This is the little gap we're talking about. So we're going to put those clamps over and just make them finger tight all the way around so it's nice and even. Once it's like that, as you can see on the 75 here, we're going to tighten it up. We're going to start with two opposite ends, and we're just going to kind of go catty corner, just like you're tightening lug nuts on your tires, if you know how to do that. If not, just follow my odd pattern and make sure they're tight like that all the way around. And here we have our Presto. Pretty awesome. They're pretty typical. They just have a weight on top rather than a valve like our 75X to regulate pressure. They have this nice little rubber seal in there that pops out if you didn't know. It's good to clean it every once in a while with warm soapy water. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Pretty simple. Make sure you get the inside and the outside when you do so. Take yourself a nice paper towel, dry it off, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll get some oil to put on there, some vegetable oil, which is probably one of the best uses for it. It's not the healthiest thing to cook with. It is what it is, right? It works great for this. Now this will give you a little bit longer life and it will help to seal. Now make sure when you put this seal back in the lid that you also check that the surface area it rests against is nice and clean. As you'll see that stuff can settle in there and that seal can sometimes break apart and get stuck in there. So clean that out, lubricate your little seal, put it in there. Throw your lid on, look for the little lining arrows. The handles will be offset, and then turn to close and seal. There you are.